Hey everyone, the following is an unscripted episode I recorded with a screen capture tool. For some reason it ended up riddled with glitches, audio pops, missing fragments of sentences, and some unintentionally amusing Max Headroom-esque voice sounds. All in all, I think it's still coherent enough to merit listening, and I may pop in from time to time via the magic of editing to clarify what was said during some of the really botched areas. Okay, so in advance, thanks for listening. Hey everyone, it's me, Phil Albertelli, and this is The Week in Doubt, a podcast for atheists, agnostics, and of course, whoever. And I guess I'll call this episode 313. Originally, my plan was to release a kind of mini audio documentary that I kind of alluded to during the last episode. It dawned on me while I was mentioning this topic in passing that I'd like to do a documentary episode on it. This idea that during the Holocaust, that there were Jewish concentration camp survivors who actually held God on trial, for forsaking the Jewish people or for letting this horrible atrocity befall them. And according to some people, the story is apocryphal, not necessarily true. But is it Elie Wiesel? Is that how you pronounce it? Or Wiesel, the author of Night, a very powerful book if you've never read it. A relatively short one, too, so it's an easy read in the sense that it's a slim volume to get through. But a not-so-easy read in the sense that it's a really dark and powerful book. But he says that this is actually a true story. And it actually supposedly inspired him to write the book The Trial of God, which I believe was turned into a play. And I think I made the mistake of saying that I thought this trial was held after the Holocaust. But actually, I believe the story, whether you think it's apocryphal or not, supposedly took place during the Holocaust in Auschwitz. And I was going to do a documentary about that, but I feel like I need more time. So I'm like, let's just do another unscripted news story episode. And that garbled phrase was news story episode, if you couldn't quite make it out. Okay. And the first couple of stories here are going to be off topic, but they still really grab my attention, so I figured, what the heck. So this first one is really kind of a last-minute story. I don't think I heard about it until last night, and it really grabbed my attention because it involves, this is going to sound kind of bad, it grabbed my attention because it involves a porn star. But it involves porn star Mercedes Carrera. And, I am no stranger to adult movies. That being said, even if you have a problem with porn, if you spend a lot of time on YouTube, you may have heard the name Mercedes Carrera or have seen her before. Because not only is she an adult film star, she was also something of a YouTube personality, and sometimes she would pop up on these kind of comedy or long-form podcast shows. Even some skeptical podcasters would interview her, etc. She actually appeared once or twice on The Drunken Peasants. And I was watching a show on YouTube last night, and the host mentioned this. I had no idea about this story till he mentioned it. And he was kind of half joking about how he was supposed to have this woman on his show coming up pretty soon. And then this happened. And before this, I always kind of admired Mercedes Carrera in a way because She came across as smart. Okay, back again through the magic of editing. So I lost about 3/4 of a sentence there. I was saying how I used to kind of admire her because she came across as smart, personable, and, fairly well educated, supposedly held some kind of advanced science degree. Oh, so I don't know what the exact truth is here. Looks like a couple of articles are saying she was a science and technology major in college. Then it's showing a tweet from her, an old tweet dating back to 2015. I guess an engineering degree in work history in aerospace and telecom, plus being a math nerd doesn't qualify me as geeky enough. But then another article is claiming that she holds a political science degree from California State University. So does she or doesn't she have an engineering degree? I don't know. But she was known as, kind of breaking that stereotype that women in porn are all stupid or airheads or something. She wouldn't be the first porn star to be, highly intelligent and to hold a kind of advanced college degree or whatever. I guess there's no reason why you couldn't be a very intelligent and well-educated person and also be some kind of sex freak or like the idea of making a living off of having sex in front of a camera or whatever. I don't know. Then my friend Crocoduck, who I often mention on the show, was telling me that he was reading up on this story and there's kind of a lot of hay being made by the fact that I guess she was pro-Gamergate or whatever. And so actually I can't even really remember if she leans left or right or what her personal politics are. I just knew that she was supposedly a fairly intelligent woman who was fairly well educated and who I'd used to see pop up on some of my YouTube shows. But then this is a really dark story. The charges against her are very serious. Supposedly her and her boyfriend, who's also involved in the porn industry, I guess he's a director, allegedly they sexually abused a girl who was under the age of 10. And I think as I said it to Crocoduck, I was like, porn thing aside, whatever you think of, porn, the morality of it or lack thereof, whatever your thoughts are on it, I was saying that aside, the whole porn thing aside, I always viewed her as being a fairly together person, but I guess not. And so this is a very dark and disturbing story. And it includes somewhere here, a picture of her mugshot. And it's unbelievable, the difference. It's just... I don't know how women do it. How it must take so long to put on all the makeup, get your look just right. And she must really layer on the makeup or have a makeup artist or something. Because world of difference between what she looks like with all the makeup on and then her mugshot. I guess also, the lighting in the station probably isn't the most flattering. I don't know. And then also, I'm sure the stress of being, photographed, being booked on serious charges or whatever probably kind of shows on your face. But, world of difference. I have a lot of female friends who, I've seen them with and without makeup, and it's not that drastic. She just must really have that stuff layered on, usually. But it's kind of a trivial thing to be talking about her makeup when the charges against her and her boyfriend are so serious. And, it says she's 36. Her partner, Jason Whitney, is 43. I guess her real name is Melinda Smith. But, it's not the type of story. It's so dark and disturbing. It's not the type of story I want to spend too much time dwelling on. I just did want to cover it because it came out of left field. We did not expect to see Mercedes Carrera caught up in a story like this. Me personally, I don't have, some people might be tempted to say, well, she's a porn star. What did you expect? I don't have any religious hang-ups about sex. My only possible hang-up with pornography has to do with whether or not the people starring in it are being exploited. And by that, I don't just mean, is someone below legal age, or did someone not give their consent to be in the film or whatever. I mean, the women starring in these movies, are they really doing it because they have a healthy attitude towards sex and they fully embrace their own sexuality and they think, hey, I love sex and I can make money doing this, so why not, Or are a lot of them broken people? Are they in pornography, in the porn industry, because they were themselves abused as children, or, they have serious issues that they haven't worked through? But let's say, for the sake of argument, hypothetically, you did have someone who's just a really sexual person who really embraced their sexuality, and to them it was somehow empowering, and they thought for them it was the best of both worlds. They can have sex, explore their sexuality, and make good money while they're doing it. Then I'd be like, more power to you. But yeah, to me, as long as the people starring in these adult movies are adults and they're participating of their own free will and they're of fairly sound mind, I don't have any problem with adult movies, and I've certainly seen my share ever since I was a kid, probably in middle school or maybe even late elementary school, and used to sneak downstairs to watch softcore porn in the middle of the night on Skinamax or whatever it was. That was back in the days where we still had like the cable boxes with the sliding dials. Then we had the ones with all the push buttons or whatever. That I used to when I was a kid, I used to record softcore porn movies in the middle of the night, like Lady Chatterley movies and stuff like that. And then I'd take the VHS tape and hide it underneath like a random piece of furniture somewhere in the house where I didn't think anyone would look for later viewing. What the hell is wrong with me? Anyway. But yeah, that is... That's just like it's such an awful, dark story. A kid under 10 years of age. She always seemed more together to me when I'd see her being interviewed, etc. Like she had a relatively good head on her shoulders, but obviously her and her quote-unquote boyfriend were up to some pretty dark and loathsome stuff. They were abusing a child, and I think according to the story there may have been more than one victim, and the cops are trying to figure out whether or not the couple was actually filming what they were doing. So just dark, awful stuff. But let's move on. Actually, all these stories today are going to be kind of dark, to be honest. And just to let you know, once again, I am using a screen capture tool here because I'm going to be taking a look at a video next. And as I've explained before, if I can record the video and the audio at the same time, it cuts down on my workload a bit. Yeah, but just a final word on that Mercedes Carrera thing. I mean, she really was a well-known... I'm saying was because at this point, I imagine your career and your life as known her to just... Pretty much you might as well consider all that done when you get caught doing something that serious. Unless somehow, she could, she was falsely accused or something. But it certainly looks like the cops have kind of got her dead to rights or whatever, so to speak. And if she did what she's accused of doing, her and her boyfriend deserve to have their careers, wiped or whatever, and deserve to be behind bars. But yeah, it's so surreal though, because like I was saying, if you're someone who watches a lot of YouTube videos, especially in the same circles as myself, atheist, skeptic, type of content, kind of irreverent, comedy slash podcast type of shows, that stuff, then you've probably seen her. You probably know her from that world. And if you're someone who even lightly, dabbles in porn or viewing adult movies or whatever, if you're someone who occasionally goes on like Pornhub or whatever, I mean, she was huge in mainstream porn. So, I mean, there's a good chance that you've seen her. So I would call her, I would say almost like, how Jenna Jameson ended up becoming kind of almost like a household name, even though she came from the porn industry. She ended up, it was fair to call her a celebrity. I would say Mercedes Carrera is almost on that level, just a really well-known figure. So this whole thing kind of blew my mind. But the next story, also an off-topic story, and you've probably heard about this one. It has to do with Liam Neeson. And I've always liked Liam Neeson. I think the first couple of movies I ever saw him in were, wasn't he in like an Old Mutiny on the Bounty movie with Mel Gibson? Who else was Anthony Hopkins in that too? Yeah, I guess that was from 1984, and it was simply called The Bounty. Anthony Hopkins played Captain Bligh, and Mel Gibson played Fletcher Christian. And I know Liam Neeson had like a relatively small role in that. And I think the big kind of breakout movie I saw him in, and maybe he had other popular movies before that, I don't know, was Rob Roy. I remember Rob Roy came out around the same time, relatively speaking, in Braveheart. So there was this real kind of Scotland mania, kind of, Highland mania thing going on. And despite its historical inaccuracies and Mel Gibson's ludicrous haircut, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome-esque haircut, I actually really enjoyed Braveheart, and I really liked Rob Roy too, or I at least liked Liam Neeson's acting in that movie. The only reason why I was hesitant to say I liked Rob Roy is because I remember there was like a disturbing rape scene in there. I think Tim Roth plays a British soldier and rapes Liam Neeson's wife or something like that. This really is a dark episode. And then suddenly it seemed like Liam Neeson became like this aging badass. All of a sudden he was being cast in these similar types of movies. There was the Taken series. I think there was a couple of other movies, including the one that's coming out now, that he got in. I think he was doing the rounds promoting the movie when he said this stuff that got him in trouble. But even this movie, it's like a similar thing. I think he plays a snowplow driver and something happens to his daughter or wife, something like that, and he has to, get revenge. So that's become his career. Like all of a sudden he's in all these movies about, some guy just being a badass and getting revenge on people for killing or kidnapping a loved one or whatever. And so I'm not completely sure what spurred Liam Neeson to divulge the story at this time. I think in a way maybe he was trying to relate it to the plot of the movie because it's a story, a personal story about someone seeking revenge. I think maybe, his heart was in the right place and he was trying to, make it into like a teachable moment about race or racism. But he ended up telling this story that really ruffled a lot of feathers. And there's been something of a backlash. So I think I may have even been reading that hours before it was supposed to go down, his red carpet appearance had been canceled or something, the premiere of his movie or something, some event having to do with the premiere of his movie that he was supposed to attend. Yeah, okay, so it says, Liam Neeson film red carpet canceled amid controversy. Okay. And now 16 hours ago, it says, Liam Neeson cancels late show appearance after racially charged, something or other. But let's watch this video.
A brutally honest admission from actor Liam Neeson in an interview with The Independent, promoting his latest movie, Cold Pursuit, where he plays a man seeking revenge.
Gonna kill him.
He says he understands the rage that can drive a person to revenge, sharing his own real-life reaction to hearing that a woman close to him was raped.
I asked, did she know who it was? No. What color were they? She said it was a black person.
The actor says he actually carried a billy club-like weapon called a kosh.
I went up and down areas with a kosh, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that. And I did it for maybe a week, hoping some black would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, you know, so that I could kill him.
Neeson says he now realizes just how awful his behavior was.
It was horrible when I think back, but I did that, and I've never admitted that.
This happened 40 years ago, but is just being revealed now. And online, this has sparked a bit of a backlash, some calling his comments racist. But Neeson says he's hoping that this can be used as a teachable moment.
Yeah, so she almost said, I didn't watch this commentary following the clip before, so she used the same phrase as me, teachable moment. So I guess that was kind of what he was aiming for. I think it's a bit harsh to say that his statement or his telling of the story is racist, because I think obviously his point was to shine a light on his own bad behavior. And he's trying to say just how ugly his own behavior was. So, it seems like he's kind of penitent or, sorry or apologetic about the whole thing. Obviously, if you're a decent person, you should know why his attitude or his mindset in that situation was very, very wrong or misguided, to say the least. It doesn't make sense to blame a whole racial group for the crime or transgression of one individual. Stalking around outside a bar waiting for a random black person to come out so you can beat them, that's not going to avenge what happened to your friend or your loved one. It just turns you into a monster, luckily his plan never came to fruition, and luckily he didn't end up actually beating or killing some poor innocent person who is completely unrelated to the horrible, event or whatever that befell his loved one, this woman. I don't know if they were platonic friends or if they were friends in a romantic sense, but either way, this woman he knew had been raped. And now this is the second story tonight where yeah. At first I was going to say, wait, I was talking about the element of rape in the Rob Roy movie, and now this, but those are both having to do with this Liam Neeson controversy. But then the Mercedes Carrera story, what her and her excuse of a boyfriend or whatever the hell he is, what they did to that child, that's rape. I don't know the gruesome details, but if they sexually abused a child in any way, that's close enough to rape for me. So wow, yeah, really a dark episode. But I personally, I think people are being too hard on Liam Neeson. I think it takes a certain kind of bravery or fortitude to be willing to divulge a story like that unless he's a complete dullard, he must have known on some level that it could negatively impact his career and his public image. And once again, the point of his story seems to be to shine a light on his own bad behavior and just how wrong and offensive his thinking was. And speaking of the Drunken Peasants, I was watching their show last night, their live stream or whatever, and Billy the Fridge, actually, he agreed that, yeah, it does take a certain kind of bravery or whatever to divulge such an unflattering story about yourself, especially if like it seems, he was doing so to try to shine a light on racism and about, how bad it is. And Billy also made what I thought was a very insightful point, that by people shaming people for sharing stories like this, it makes it less likely for people to want to come forward with such stories and spark dialogue and, have really open, honest discussions about racism. It's funny, if a skinhead or a white supremacist had a change of heart and came forward to denounce what they and their former brethren had done and how ugly that mindset is, etc., I think a lot of people would applaud them, for having the bravery to come forward, or for having enough of a conscience to be able to flip the script and start, denouncing racism and using themselves as an example, and trying to teach others where they went wrong in the past or whatever. I think a lot of people would applaud that. But you have a guy like Liam Neeson who comes forward and shares this ugly story from his past that he's not proud of, seemingly with the intent to create a kind of teachable moment, or to shine a light on the ugliness of racism. And, his premiere's getting canceled. There's people calling him a racist and everything. And you got to remember, what they say, how long ago was this? 34, I think, was it 40 years ago? So he must have been a pretty young guy. And that doesn't excuse it, but, we do, if we're lucky, we tend to kind of grow or mature, or our worldview matures. We get wiser as we get older, hopefully. And we probably all have things from our youth, that we wouldn't want to admit to other people, or that we're no longer proud of. Looking back, that maybe makes us cringe, or think, well, I was such an idiot back then, or I can't believe that I promoted that type of worldview or whatever. Yeah, and so 40 years ago, that might have just been, a ballpark number. But he's 66 now, so he would have been in his 20s. So yeah, a relatively young guy. In a sense, probably still a dummy with a lot of growing up to do, and, chock full of testosterone, and a very understandable chip on his shoulder in a sense. Not in the sense that that chip was aimed to a whole racial group of people, but it's understandable that he would be upset and want revenge or see justice done for this horrible crime that his female friend was subjected to. I definitely understand why he would be pissed. But obviously, as we already covered, the problem, the flaw in his logic, or lack thereof, is that it doesn't make sense, logically or morally, to hold a whole racial group accountable for the transgression, no matter how bad that transgression is, of one individual. And in a way, I understand why people have had a negative gut reaction to hearing him tell this story. Because even for me, it was weird hearing Liam Neeson, this guy that I've been fond of, who's acting in movies I've enjoyed for, decades, suddenly saying things like black bastard and talking about what they call it, a kosh, probably some kind of cudgel type of thing, just waiting outside of pubs for the chance to kill, a person because they shared the same color as the perpetrator who happened to do this awful thing, who happened to rape his female friend. Now, if he had actually found the guy who did it, I do have that dark kind of vengeful aspect to my personality. Like when I hear about someone doing something totally awful, if someone, let's say hypothetically they have the right person, I wouldn't lose sleep if I heard that he actually caught the actual rapist and beat the shit out of the guy, I'd probably want to give him a medal. Yeah, world of difference between that and trying to start your own one-man little race war, contemplating hurting, even killing someone just because they share the same skin color as someone else. That's awful. But it seems like he knows it's awful. But yeah, so I can see why people have a negative visceral reaction to the story. But when you really think about it and you see what he's trying to achieve by sharing the story, I think people are being too hard on him. Okay, so now I have one more story. And this one is from Pathos's The Friendly Atheist. It's not by Hemant Mehta, though. It looks like it's by David Gee. And it involves the Catholic Church and sex abuse. The one silver lining, fortunately, this time around it does involve children. But unfortunately, still a very dark story. And it still has to do with people sexually preying on other people, priests preying on women in this instance, nuns, I believe. So it's entitled, Pope Francis Admits Priests Sexually Abuse Women, Held Them as Slaves. Once again, this is a very dark episode. And this is dated February 6th. Pope Francis, for the first time, acknowledged the ongoing sexual abuse of nuns, by priests, even going as far as to describe women being held in sexual slavery. This is shit like right out of the Marquis de Sade, man. Just corrupt clergymen doing, sexually preying on nuns and innocent women behind the scenes. Abominable stuff. Let's see. The Pope, who just 4 months ago admitted that people are fleeing the Catholic Church due to the child sex abuse scandal, reportedly made the disclosure during a trip to the Middle East. He said the Church was aware of priests sexually abusing nuns and that it is, in quotes, still going on. Well, how about we fucking do something about it? Pope Francis has admitted that clerics have sexually abused nuns, and in one case, they were kept as sex slaves. That's like ISIS, Boko Haram level shit. He said in that case, his predecessor, Pope Benedict, was forced to shut down an entire congregation of nuns who were being abused by priests. And at least, once again, a tiny silver lining, they did actually shut it down, instead of just brushing the whole thing under the carpet and letting it continue. It's somewhat refreshing to learn that they at least took some action at that point. It is thought to be the first time that Pope Francis has acknowledged the sexual abuse of nuns by the clergy. He said the Church was attempting to address the problem, but said it was still going on. And I like how the way that's worded. It's so, benign or humdrum, kind of like, you ring up a call center because you have a missing a package that hasn't arrived yet. We're attempting to address the problem. If you'd please be patient. It's like you're attempting to address the problem. Wherever there's nuns being abused, shut that shit down. Do whatever the hell it is you have to. Get, get the secular authorities involved immediately. It's good that Pope Francis is finally noticing and addressing this controversy. It means that some of the resistance to change will be weakened, and it will hopefully prevent such abuses from occurring, at least at the same rates ever again. These stories aren't new to anyone who's been listening to the Church's victims. Until now, they've been getting nothing but silence from Catholic leaders. It's likely that the only reason he's even mentioning this right now is the ongoing scandal in India, where several nuns have openly accused priests of rape and abuse. Then, and I assume this is sarcasm, if you are concerned by this revelation, then worry no more because the Pope is quote-unquote working on it. He admitted that priests and bishops had abused nuns, but said the Church was aware of the issue and working on it. Once again, it's like that weird call center like type of attitude or talk. It's a path that we've been on, he said. Pope Benedict had the courage to dissolve a female congregation which was at a certain level because the slavery of women had entered it. Slavery even to the point of sexual slavery on the part of clerics or the founder. Pope Francis said sexual abuse of nuns was an ongoing problem, but happened largely in quote-unquote certain congregations, predominantly new ones. Then shut them new ones down. Or whoever the hell it is that you suspect of committing the abuse, get them the hell out of there. Just safety and the well-being of these women, these victims first. Immediately put the place on lockdown. Identify the problem individuals. Get them out of there. Call in the lay authorities, the cops. Do whatever you have to do to ensure the safety of those victims or to prevent further victimization. If this is a path the church has been on before, then choose a different route. It's hardly inspiring that the church is working on something that should have been shut down the moment it was discovered. Exactly. Their decades-long hesitation has led to the rampant sexual abuse of women and children. The only reason the church is finally acknowledging the problem and making any effort to prevent more abuse is because of all the public pressure and condemnation in their direction. The faster people leave the church, the faster church leaders will be forced to do something meaningful. What a debauched den of vipers, man. As that last or second to last paragraph pointed out, the rampant sexual abuse of women and children. And for so long, stuff like this was just being swept under the carpet. And you don't need me to point out how bad this is. I mean, it's kind of a no-duh. But I thought it was a story that nevertheless deserved mentioning. A big part of the show is trying to shine the light of reason on superstition and BS, and also to try to sharply point out and condemn the hypocrisy and wrongdoing of religious individuals and religious institutions, especially when it's something as dire as this, the sexual abuse of women and children. But on that cheery note, it was a dark one, wasn't it? Man, more so than usual. Thanks for listening, guys. You know the drill. You can like the Facebook page, follow the show on Twitter, check out the YouTube channel. Maybe you're doing that now. If you want to help the show out monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/theweekindoubt. And, help the show out for as little as 99 cents a month. But if, like many people, you're taking a principled stand against Patreon, you can always use the PayPal widget at the bottom of the Podbean page. There's all that alliteration. And also, you can review or rate the show on iTunes. If you leave a review, I promise I will most certainly read it on the air as soon as I become aware of it. All right, brothers and sisters, until next time.